Hello everyone, I'm here. I'm in my car for the first time in a while, but you know what that means. I am at London Colney, a freezing cold London Colney for Mikel Arteta's press conference, which is coming up here in about 40 minutes time. So once I've done recording this, I'm going to head upstairs and prepare for what he's got to say ahead of Friday night's game at Manchester City, of course, in the FA Cup. I'm sure lots of the talk about during the press conference will be dominated by that game at City. What's Arteta going to do? Is he going to rest players? Is he going to go full strength? How would resting players affect momentum if Manchester City were to win and win convincingly? All these sort of questions I imagine are certainly going to be thrown at Mikel, so we'll see what he has to say. Transfer stuff, no doubt, as well. We're now 6 days away from the end of the transfer window. Cedric Soares, he is on his way to Fulham. Loan expected to be completed at some point this week. Just a loan, no buy option, straight loan for the rest of the season. Fulham going to be covering his wages. It was a difficult decision for Cedric, I'm told, because he just really wanted to go, really wanted to play, but also it's it's a tough time to leave Arsenal. Even if you're not playing, you want to, the position they're in, what they could end up achieving in the next few months, you kind of want to be a part of that, even if you're not playing. So it wasn't the easiest decision, but in the end, his determination to play and the desire of Marco Silva to get him has turned his head and made his decision for him, I'm told. So expecting that loan deal to go through before the end of the week. Whether Mikel talks about that, we shall wait and see. Whether he talks about possibly Ivan Frisnada coming in as a replacement, I highly doubt, because we know what Mikel Arteta always says about those sort of transfers, that he can't talk until the player is signed. My understanding on that is it's still the same as it was. Arsenal waiting for his decision. There's other clubs in for him as well, and he will make his decision known. But even if that does go through, he's not coming in. I don't believe he's going to be coming in as a straight replacement for Cedric in the squad, because I think he'll stay on loan in Spain for the remainder of the season, where he is, of course, with Valladolid at the moment. All right, that's about it from me. I'm going to head in there now. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled. We'll get all the latest from Mikel, and I'll come back and report back later. So that's where the press conference is, up there in the white building, just right behind the diesel supply van. Very glamorous here at London Colney.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's well.
Okay, so Mikel has finished talking now. I thought I'd pop out here and give a quick update on what he had to say. Lots covered, as I expected. You know, it was all a lot to do with Manchester City game. Sort of got the impression by the way he was talking, I think if you're expecting wholesale changes for it, I don't think it's going to happen. Certainly, you know, he pointed out there's a week to go, a week until the next game after that. It's not like Arsenal are playing every 3 or 4 days at the moment. They've been playing Saturday to Saturday or weekend to weekend for the last couple of weeks as well. So I certainly got the impression from the way he was talking that he's going to go pretty strong for this time, which I think is the right call, to be honest. It doesn't really make too much sense to me to rotate too heavily. I'm sure he'll change a few things, but I think to change the entire team, to make 8 or 9 changes, it just doesn't feel right at the Etihad at all. And when you think back to the Oxford game, you played Saka and Martinelli against Oxford. So if you're doing that away at Oxford, you're probably going to do that against Manchester City as well. So I imagine there's a few players who might get a little bit of a rest. You know, Rob Holding will probably come in, I imagine, so we might see Saliba on the bench. You'd imagine Thomas Partey might get a rest, because you just can't afford anything to happen to Thomas Partey. But then when you do that, it's a question of who comes in, because and I'll talk about this a little bit later on in this video, Mohamed Elneny is certainly not going to be around. So you're playing Sambi Lokonga as the holding role at the Etihad, which doesn't exactly fill you with confidence at the moment with the form that Sambi's been showing recently. So there probably will be a few changes, but I still get the impression from what he said today that it will be a pretty strong team at the Etihad on Friday night. He said there were no new injuries, which is a good thing. So that, of course, leaves people like Gabriel Jesus still injured, Reece Nelson, Elneny, as I said, Cedric Soares, who is just, even if he's not joined Fulham yet, he has been struggling with a little bit of a knock as well. So they're the players who definitely won't be involved. But other than that, I think it's going to be a very strong squad. And, you know, the players who maybe aren't starting, the couple who might be given a rest, they'll certainly be on the bench to come on and make an impact if required in the second half. Injuries wise, Mohamed Elneny, he spoke about that. Now, you might be aware, you might have heard it, there's been a few whispers doing the rounds about the severity of Elneny's injury and just how long he is going to be out for. There have been suggestions he might be out for this season. Now, none of this has been confirmed yet, so it's been difficult to report, but there's certainly the whispers that are doing the rounds that it's not good news when it comes to Elneny. Now, Arteta didn't confirm any of that today, but he was asked about it, and he admits that there were concerns over him. He was then asked directly, is there a potential for him being out for the season? And again, he just said, look, he's still being assessed. We're still trying to get to the bottom of it. But he added, when Elneny says something doesn't feel right, then that's a bad sign, because Elneny usually plays through an awful lot. So that's bad news for Arsenal, no doubt about it. If it does turn out to be a real serious injury for Elneny, then they are light in midfield, because you kind of, as I said, Thomas Partey is the one player you really can't do without losing. And if you do, to have basically no real backup in that defensive midfield position is a big concern with half the season still to go. And so Mikel did admit that ideally they would be looking to get in some sort of midfield reinforcements this month. With 6 days left of the window, that obviously isn't the easiest, which he also added, but it seems like Arsenal are looking at midfield options. Now, they've been linked with a few players recently. McKennie at Juventus has been heavily linked at the moment. Nothing that's been stood up yet with that, but he's one of the players that have been linked. There's a few others as well doing around. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see what Arsenal do when it comes to midfield, because from what he was saying up there and the impression he got, he knows that they do need to strengthen if the Elneny injury is as bad as it potentially looks. So that's one certainly to keep an eye on. I think that's one of the big headlines to come from this press conference. I asked him about Gabriel Jesus, because Jesus at the weekend was caught on video at the Emirates saying that he was going to be back in about 4 to 5 weeks. I asked Mikel about that, if he could confirm that that is the kind of time frame that they're looking at. And he said, look, it's really difficult with him, because he's chomping at the bit. He's pushing every single day to be back. He said, look, he wants to be back next week. He then said that's absolutely not going to happen, because it was a really big injury. But he hopes that it's weeks and not months. So he clearly didn't confirm what Jesus said at the weekend. And Arsenal have been very, very careful not to put a time frame on Jesus' injury and his return from injury, because they don't want to put any undue pressure on him, on the club, on the medical staff, which is understandable. So we'll have to wait and see. But that's what he said to me. He said hopefully it's going to be weeks and not months. And if that is the case, it's always been kind of early March has been the time frame, although it's never been publicly said. That's always been the kind of time frame that we've all been expecting when it comes to Jesus coming back. And if that all kind of rings true with what he had to say in that video at the weekend as well. So that was quite I would say, positive update, but then the way Mikel always talks, it was kind of tempered a little bit by him playing down. Elsewhere, there wasn't really too much else. He spoke a little bit about Everton. He spoke lots about Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. Obviously, you're going to see so many quotes and pieces being written about Arteta and Pep in the build-up to Friday night's game, understandably so, and given the context behind it with the two teams going for the title as well. So expect to see plenty of that. But elsewhere, I think those were the main real headlines. Was Jesus, his update on Jesus, his update on Elneny's injury, and him saying that the club would, ideally strengthen. He said, I can't remember the exact quote, and it's upstairs now, so I can't go back in there and have a look. But he said basically, if there is anything else that we can do to strengthen, we will look at it. So he didn't rule out the possibility of Arsenal dipping back into the transfer market before the window shuts in just 6 days' time. All right, that's it from me here at London Colney. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Please do enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be back to speak to you tomorrow, where we'll look further ahead to that game against Manchester City on Friday night. Have a great day.